Welcome to Vape News Radio, the voice of vaping. In each show, we share the latest about regulations and things you need to know, plus upcoming conferences and fests, along with interviews with the movers and shakers in this fabulous vape space. Are you looking to get into this ever-expanding marketplace? Do you want to master this industry? Listen up as Norm Bauer, the vape mentor, shares it all. And here's your host, Norm Bauer.
Hello and welcome to Vape Radio, the voice of vaping, and this is show number 88. I'm Norm Bauer with Vape Mentors, and on Vape Radio, we talk to some of the major thought leaders in the vaping industry and empower you to be smarter and better if you are in the business too. Our supporters include Vibe, the vape industry business exchange. If you're a vape shop and want to tap into the collective buying power of hundreds of shops, visit vibe4vape.com. That's Vibe, the number 4, vape.com. And if you're a liquid manufacturer of any size, they have options for you to stay compliant affordably and to expand your business model. Vibe will officially be launching soon, and we'll include links to that event in our show notes. We're also sponsored by the Keller & Heckman E-Vapor Legal Symposium. We brought together 10 attorneys, including one from China, plus 8 industry leaders, and over 2 days filmed 12 hours of great insight to offer you. The package is available for purchase. Contact me at norm@vapementors.com for information on having your own copy. Meanwhile, if you'd like some information on what is going on with the FDA, we are offering a free, yes, that's right, free FDA mini course. You can access it at vapementors.com/FDA mini. That's MINI. Unless you've been under a rock for the past year, you have heard about this movie called A Billion Lives. It was the brainchild of director Aaron Biebert, a non-smoker who was intrigued by this new thing he heard of called vaping. As he researched the market and looked into the history of vaping, some bad things surfaced. Those bad things included efforts by competitors, primarily Big Tobacco and Big Pharma, to squelch the industry. The big boys were threatened by our world, and they should have been. They ignored vaping for a remarkably long time, and when their market share eroded, they decided to get on board. They bought Ecig companies. Some started their own. Then came the bad shit, the smear campaigns, the negative publicity, evidence of collusion between anti-vaping organizations that surprisingly were also against us. As Aaron filmed Billion Lives, some truths became evident. When they launched this officially last year in New Zealand, of all places, many took notice, and the regulators actually started looking into the research, the science behind vaping. They're still working on it, and the hope is that they may lighten up some of their objections. Finally, the movie came to the U.S. and premiered at many vape events. It has been viewed by tens of thousands of people, both vapers and non. It has been screened for legislators and regulators behind closed doors. The hope is that it will give them pause and maybe elicit some common sense. But this is a big paradigm shift, and things do move slowly. Today, you're going to get right from the horse's mouth. So chill out and listen to this journey from idea to execution to launch. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Norm Bauer, the voice of vape, and welcome back to Vape Radio. We have been very blessed with having a lot of amazing guests over the last several weeks, and the guest that we have today is a gentleman who I have actually met in person, which isn't always the case. But you will probably know, if not his name, you'll certainly know his passion project, which is a movie called A Billion Lives. And we have on Vape Radio today Aaron Biebert, and he's going to be talking a little bit about what A Billion Lives is, what it was, what it is right now, and more importantly, maybe some of the impacts. So Aaron, welcome to Vape Radio.
Hey, glad to be here, Norm. This is fun.
Absolutely. Well, you're a professional in the audio-video guy, so this isn't quite as impressive as creating a video or creating a movie that's been seen on a worldwide level. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what's your background, and what in the world compelled you to create a movie around vaping, which you were not a vapor, and from what I understand, you weren't even a smoker, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a good story on that because, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense at first. But basically what we did about 8 years ago is I started a company called Attentionary Media, and we've been doing a lot of short form films and commercials and stuff like that, and continue to try to push the limits and bring our craft to a higher level. And we decided we wanted to make a movie. And I had some friends who were vapors, and I kind of was, sort of thinking these guys are crazy and all of that kind of stuff. And finally, enough's enough. They say, this is some way that I quit smoking, and it's not really a joke. And, when I find out 1 billion people are projected to die from smoking this century, well, surely there must be, here's people quitting using this technology. I never hear anything about that. And 1 billion people are projected to die. There must be a movie about this. Obviously I'm in the movie business, so I'm thinking, there's got to be some other films. Let's see what else is out there. Nothing. I can't find anything. I find some Kickstarter projects that never went anywhere. I was like, well, this is interesting. Obviously I continue to talk to people, and I find out, there's a lot of very enthusiastic, passionate people behind it. And I said, well, maybe this could be a project for us, because it seems like there's an audience and people would actually care about it. And obviously we could help some people, get the truth out there about if 1 billion people are going to die from smoking. I had a colleague of mine actually die from lung cancer. And so it was something that I was kind of hit home a little bit as far as like, the reality of people dying from this. And so, so I did some research. I didn't want to be one of those guys who was making a movie that everyone would be making fun of in, 5 years because it was the totally wrong information. I didn't want to be a part of that. And so I spent about 3 months, researching, what's up with all this, and felt very confident that there was something really serious going on here behind the scenes, because the stuff just wasn't adding up.
I like to say that in my life, in my career, it's taken some unexpected paths, and I always say that I climb into a lot of rabbit holes and I never know where they go. And sometimes they go nowhere, and sometimes they go into some wondrous places. So you probably had no idea of what you were getting into when you started this, right?
Right. No idea, because I wasn't a smoker myself, and wasn't a vapor either. And so it was a whole new culture. And after 3 months of research, we decided, okay, all right, let's do this. We made that announcement video that was the text with the song that we ended the movie with. And we put that out just to let everyone know, hey, we're making this movie. Seems like there's something here to fight, and we're going to be a part of this. So we're learning. We're going to do interviews, and we're going to figure out, what the truth is. And we began, first thing we did, we went to Vape Bash in Illinois. That's right near where I live. I live in Milwaukee. I went into this place for, about 10 minutes, and I had to leave. I was getting a headache. I was like, oh no, I wonder if I'm wrong about this. And finally, I did some research on the whole idea of mixing all the flavors together. Obviously it was fairly low ceilings, a lot of people. And I was, at first was like, what have I got myself into? And after going to some more, different events and meeting more people, and actually some of the folks from CASA were there at that event and really helped me understand kind of the fight. They helped me understand that. And that was good. It was fun at first to start meeting people, but it was definitely a little bit of a culture shock.
Well, the vaping industry is a little bit schizophrenic, which I'm sure you've seen. You have many different multiple personalities. You have the personality of the cloud chasers, which is not quite where it used to be. And so when you go to events, I have defined events as one of 3 categories. You have a fest, F-E-S-T, which is a party looking for a place to happen. And that's probably what you encountered. Very smoky, very noisy, a lot of women running around half dressed. And at one time, basically, it was a reason to go to get your free samples. Not too long ago, before the deeming regulations, you could go there with a satchel and you could come home with enough liquid and enough, little tchotchkes here to keep you busy for a while. And on the other end of the fest category are the trade shows, which are very professional, very high end, with usually some good education, some great speakers. And then you have that middle ground in between, which I'm sure over the years you've seen all 3 of them. And so that may have caused you to wonder whether you were getting yourself into a rabbit hole that was not exactly the most professional, because that was probably not the most professional representation you saw of the industry. I mean, what feelings did you have when you came away from that? Because that was before you ever started your film project, right?
Well, that was the first shoot that we had,
it was. Wow.
Yeah. I remember a friend of mine who's a doctor was like, Aaron, takes me aside. He's like, hey, I'm really worried about you. Like, you don't do this because it's going to end up ruining your career. You don't want to do this. Like, you're going to look stupid. And, by that point, I had seen enough stuff where I'm like, these doctors, I think in many ways don't even know the truth. And, if anything, it hardened my resolve. But I was fully aware that I'm heading into no man's land as folks, and I continue to see it. I'm still getting probably 10, 20 pieces of hate mail every week from people, vapors specifically, who just want the movie from like the month after we said we were going to start filming. Like, just put it out for free already. Just put it out right now on YouTube. It's like, we haven't even finished the movie yet. It's been interesting to deal with this, but in some ways, like, it helped me understand why it was happening. Because some of these vapors, obviously some are super professional, very just intelligent, very educated, smooth talking son of a guns, But then there's a lot of these folks who I think in some ways were ignored and marginalized. In some cases, I understand why that was. But those same people, they still needed help and they still deserved the truth. And so for me, it helped me understand why this was happening because some of these people weren't representing it very well. But it also helped me remember why it was that they needed the help because in some cases, these folks weren't really very good at talking on their own. So having someone from the outside come in and actually tell their story would actually really help them. And so it was kind of this twofold thing. Obviously, a lot of pain, but also it felt like I was helping a group who was having a hard time telling their own story.
So out of curiosity, I have a question that has been kind of in my mind. So the title, A Billion Lives, obviously we know where it came from. And it's a very compelling title, I have to tell you. As a marketer, you always want what they call the interrupt, which grabs people's attention, gets them out of their state of, their lethargy state. So it's a good title. So were there any other titles that you maybe considered before you finally went with A Billion Lives? I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, man. That was starting to be quite a while ago. But there was a couple, but, I was really committed to talking about the human aspect of this.
Yeah.
Versus the technology aspect of this. I mean, because I'm not a vapor, not a smoker, I'm really not super enthused about the technology, the nuances of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you asked me all about all the different mods, I wouldn't be able to tell you even still after spending, a year or so in this whole world. But really, we're focused on the people part of it. And I knew one family specifically that, was very touched and hurt by the loss of a loved one because of it. And I could only think that if you multiply that times a billion, that this is a really significant impact on our world and our communities. And so I think pretty early on, that was something that was the front runner. And we had been operating on that title pretty much since pretty early on, even before we announced that we were doing it, even before we decided to do it. So it's pretty much been the main title the whole time. And that was, I think, something that just came to me in the shower one time, like just what will interrupt things, what will get people's attention. Our company is called Attention Media because we know that people are really having a hard time getting attention for the truth and for things that they're trying to market because there's so much noise out there. 1 billion people, that ought to be worth talking about. So, yeah, I think that was probably the main one. There's, I'm sure, all kinds of things about vapor and things, that we'd played with. I think there's something about the rise of vapors. There's all kinds of silly. We went through a lot of brainstorming, but Billion Lives was pretty much the early favorite and obviously the one that stuck.
So you launched in New Zealand, from what I recall. And when was that, Aaron? I'm sure the date is very specific in your mind.
Yeah, that was last May. We launched, our world premiere was at the Doc Edge Film Festival, which is a really prestigious documentary film festival and the number one documentary festival in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's hosted where basically the Hollywood of that part of the world, that's where Lord of the Rings was made, Hobbit, all of the Chronicles of Narnia, Avatar, like a ton of really big movies are made in that city, in that area. And we actually had our world premiere was in the theater made by the folks who made Lord of the Rings. So, in fact, had one of the two main producers of the movie was there, who was a knighted gentleman. So, yeah, it was kind of fun to have, the different folks that we had there. We got a lot of press. It was a really great way to kick off the movie. And that's also a country where we knew they were having some problems where they had been banning the sale of nicotine vapor products, which is the main way that smokers, are able to quit. Taking away the nicotine is basically taking away the main part of it. And so we felt really compelled this would be a great place to start because we had that invitation and also just, it was the movie had finally just got ready. And so away we went. And it was really big, next couple of days after the government came out and announced that they were indeed going to reconsider their ban. And at this point, 8-9 months later, they've defunded some of the type of organizations that we focused on in the movie that were being basically antagonists towards this technology. And they've launched their own study into it to verify everything. And have basically, at this point, it's all but done that they're going to be reversing. And I think at some point are going to become a world leader in vapor tech like you see in the UK. So we feel very happy with that decision. And yeah, it was
Excellent.
Great.
So there's probably some people who are listening right now who have heard of the movie. Maybe there's others that haven't, but many people have never seen the movie. So if you had to give me a 30-second to 60-second pitch of what A Billion Lives is all about, how do you describe it?
Yeah, the slogan we've been going with is 1 billion people projected to die. You'll be surprised who's keeping it that way, and that really sums it up quickly. There's a serious situation here. There's over 1 billion smokers right now. They project 1.6 billion in the next 20 years. And these people, 70% want to quit smoking. And it's very difficult. And along comes this technology, and it's being hampered, and it's being harassed, and it's being maligned. And why is that happening? We investigate that and some conclusions about the money side of it, but also there's some real interesting political alliances and things. And that's basically, the summary of the movie, and then a call to action at the end that we need to let our neighbors live longer, let them live better. So that's kind of how we wrap up the movie.
So I was fortunate to see this, and I kind of look at it as being like a whodunit. In the world of mystery movies, it's kind of like you're looking for a smoking gun, you're looking for the evil behind the evil. And so what this is uncovering the conspiracy behind the many entities that have been, I'm going to say, conspiring to keep vaping as underground as it was. And that includes certainly big pharma, big tobacco, so forth and so on. We talked about the past. I want to cover the present. And more importantly, the future of where you see the movie going and where you see the industry going. So as of right now, when we're recording this at the beginning of 2017, how many venues do you think that this movie has been screened in? And if you have any idea about how many people have actually physically been there to watch it?
Yeah, I think just under 200 different places and times. And I mean, the numbers of a lot of people buy tickets. I don't know how many showed up, but we had a lot of sold out events, and it's definitely in the 5 figures, the number of people that have seen it. And I mean, just in Milwaukee at our North American premiere, we had 1,500 people there. And it was a sold out, massive event. 80% of the people there were not vapors. It was a really great response from the general public. And I know that a lot of people were bringing their moms and dads and the people who were worried about them, and also, bringing their politicians and in some cases news people. It's been shown a lot. Plus, behind the scenes, I mean, we did a special screening for the U.S. Congress. We've done special screenings in other cases. I've even sent special secret copies to leaders of various different things. I won't get into too much detail about that, but we feel very happy that we've been able to make an impact now. People would like the movie, however they'd like it and quickly, but in many ways, we've been able to honor our commitments to the theaters to not be showing it or not putting it out on, Blu-ray right away while it's in theaters, because that hurts their particular interest. And a lot of times we've had these things behind the scenes that we've done at low or no cost. Definitely lots of people. And yeah, I'm feeling very happy with that, even though I wish it would go a little bit faster. But, we're a small organization and we're the small fish, and there's a lot of big fish. And they sometimes take longer than we'd like, and we're at their mercy. But that's how, if you want to get it out to the mainstream, sometimes you got to work with the big dogs.
So that was a great segue into the what now, which means that I'm sure that you've gotten a lot of people who have solicited you and said, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? And I know people have said this should go on real Blu-ray, and some people said it should go on Netflix and what have you. So I recently got a release from you guys that said that you are about to launch into a little bit wider distribution. Why don't you share with us a little bit about what the game plan is and what the timing is on that, Aaron?
Yeah. Exciting thing was, after some of these really big premieres that we did, we actually had a company approach us who does broadcast distribution around the world. And they said they were going to try to pitch some of their networks that they work with. And they've been in conversations with that. I don't have all the answers, but I know at least one network is going to play it 15 times. And so we're really excited for that. At the same time, we are getting everything approved behind the scenes for the likes of like iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, all of that kind of stuff. Our first launch will be iTunes, and that's going to be a publicity stunt, because one of the things that people care about is what's number one on iTunes for the day or the week or whatever. And we think that if we do a pre-sale campaign, all of the sales from the pre-sales all count on the day that it launches. And so if you do a good job with that, you can actually have the number one movie or number one documentary on iTunes. And when people go to look for something to buy, A Billion Lives would be trending, and would be one of those movies that they might consider simply because it's doing well. So we're going to do that first. We're now starting to take pre-orders for Blu-ray because, our team, again, we're focused on making movies. We thought that we'd be able to get wider distribution help, but unfortunately this topic is just something that is just tough for a lot of the big Hollywood folks to get behind because they get so much funding, the ties with television ads and whatnot from big pharmaceutical industries. And even the fact that Facebook sometimes bans our advertising really has these guys concerned that maybe they won't be able to make their money back if they get involved with us. And so we end up having to distribute this thing ourselves with physical copies like Blu-ray disc, which is what we're going to do. we're going to be the organization that does retail, or has stores. We're very eager to partner with them to have this in their stores. We're going to do it that way because we can't fulfill all the orders that we're going to get, solo orders. We just couldn't do it. I mean, we have about 100,000 people following the movie right now, and if even half of those people ordered a Blu-ray, we could not fulfill it. We just don't have the time or the thing. Yeah. So we're going to ship in bulk to pretty much anyone who's interested. We'll ship them bulk, and then they can sell it, a margin or whatever.
Yeah.
Or give them away or do whatever they want with them.
Well, that's the beauty of streaming and electronic media is that, once you start going on iTunes, now you don't have to worry about distribution costs. So what is your intended or estimated day for your launch of iTunes? And that technique of basically launching on a day with a good buildup of PR is the same thing with Amazon. If you go ahead and kind of prime the pump and everything, you can be the number one top seller in Amazon in certain categories. So what is your estimated date of when you want to launch on iTunes so that everyone can kind of be ready for it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, we're hoping in the next 60 days we'll be launched, but an exact date, I'm reluctant to say a date because I don't have the final approvals yet. And sometimes these guys have disappointed me in the past with how long they take to finalize things. And so I know that the first levels of whatever have been passed and all of that. So it's really just a matter of them giving us the word, and we don't have that yet. But we're expecting in the next 60 days that this thing will be out in the public. So it's, that's pretty exciting.
And to put that in perspective, we're recording this in February, and so that means that we're looking at somewhere at the beginning of the second quarter of 2017. Let me ask you, when you took on this project, obviously it took a lot of directions that you didn't anticipate. You've obviously put a lot of money out in advance and probably did not get back what you expected to, and that's, of course, the risk of entrepreneurship. So if you kind of knew what you knew now back then, would you still have climbed into this rabbit hole?
I think so. It's been very fulfilling, and there's more than just the money aspect of it. I mean, this allowed us to stretch our creative, skills and show off a little bit. I mean, we did some things that have never really been done with documentaries before, including like 8K footage and some of this stuff that we've done that are really advanced. And I think that while we definitely haven't even come close to recouping the money, we don't know yet because I think the majority of the money is going to actually come from selling the Blu-ray discs and the streaming. And some people are like, think that we're doing this, that we didn't put it out right away because we were being greedy. Actually, in reality, if we were being greedy, we would have put it out right away because that's how you make all the money. So we don't know yet on the financial side of it, whether it's going to be a success or not. But I know that right now, I still anticipate that there will be people interested in because it's a powerful way it was made for the public, not for vapors. And so I think it'll be a powerful tool for people to tell their own story. Hey, quit harassing me about this, watch this movie, and then we can talk. I think that's going to be a common thing. And hopefully that, people see purchasing the movie as a way to support artwork and our ability to keep telling stories like this. And, we're considering possibly making a follow-up to it if we can, at least generate enough sales.
You must have pulled that right out of my head because I was going to ask you whether or not you saw the benefit of a sequel, or maybe you could talk about what's happened since then, because obviously it's been a while since you actually started filming, and maybe talk about what the new landscape is like, which is totally different than it was 2 years ago. I mean, here we are at the beginning of 2017. You started this probably in 2015, and of course now we are moving forward into a more civilized vaping community, more professional vaping community with a lot of horror stories out there, unfortunately, with businesses closing, and also some success stories with people collaborating and teaming up together and fighting this juggernaut called the FDA. So we would certainly welcome you on the show as new information becomes available, Aaron, because I think what you've done is bold. Most certainly, you put yourself out there, you committed, and you followed through. And, I'm sure that you and your family and your team has had a wonderful ride. You've been able to go all over the world and launch this. So from a strictly value proposition, I'm sure that you feel that you've delivered the value that you wanted to at the time. Fairly correct in all those conclusions?
Well, I don't think any of the information is really outdated in the movie. We knew what was going to happen, and we actually had in the movie when it launched in May of last year, we had all the stuff that's happening right now. We knew what they were going to do, and we essentially made a little bit of a calculated guess on what was going to happen. And good. Because we asked for predictions and we put those into the movie. And actually, right before we launched it in May, we did make some adjustments to it to make it the most current information. And then once the FDA came out with their stuff and Europe came out with their stuff, it was right on the spot, actually. And so I don't feel like any of it's outdated. And point, like I said, we aren't doing products. We weren't talking about products. So those obviously would be outdated in the last 2 years. But the truth is still what the truth is. We feel very comfortable that the studies that have continued to come out since the movie was launched continue to verify what we have in the movie, and the reason why people are fighting it are still the same. And so we don't think that we've lost any relevance in the last 9 months that it's been out. And I don't anticipate it not be relevant, because it's really a story of how big money and misinformation can corrupt an entire way to help save a lot of people's lives. And that's going to be a story that'll be relevant for, the next million years, I think.
Yeah, that's sad but true. Human nature being what it is, and greed being what it is, and power being what it is. The truth is that this is just a snapshot in time of a specific industry that got hammered down, and there's a lot of other industries that you could point to that have similar conspiracies against it, trying to squelch it in the interest of self-serving companies who were carrying the power. Well, listen, my friend, This has been an honor and a pleasure having you on Vape Radio. Is there anything that maybe we didn't cover that you would like to share before we sign off here?
Yeah, just a lot of great questions that you had. I mean, I don't know anything specifically that I'd like to add, just that, there's been a lot of great people supporting us over the last year or so. Some people that were there at the first launch of our video, and we never forget that. I've carried that weight the whole time, the trust that people have put in my team and myself. And I mean, we're doing our best, and it's actually, I'm feeling very fulfilled about it. There'll be a lot more stories coming out about what we've all been doing behind the scenes. And I'm really confident in what we've been doing. And even though we don't always make it public, we're not sitting around doing nothing. We're actually working very hard. I'm excited for people to see the movie who haven't seen it. And I'm excited for potentially doing a follow-up and talking about maybe not a continuation of the story, because that wouldn't be interesting enough to make a whole movie about. But maybe like, how does something like this happen? And talking about that, I think there's some value in that. So we'll have to see. Yeah, a lot of it depends. Otherwise, I mean, we're going to keep making movies for sure. Just we'll have to see which topics we tackle. But yeah, maybe this one deserves a follow-up. We'll see.
Excellent. I will put your contact information in the show notes for anyone who wants to get a hold of you, along with the website. So why don't you go ahead and announce the website, so if anyone wants to know what your launch update is as far as the re-release, so what website would they be going to?
I mean, the main way to keep updated on what the film is doing is to sign up for our emails at abillionlives.com. I send out these updates that are, fairly detailed, and sometimes they're a little bit longer. And so we don't do that on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, just because it's just, there's not enough room. And so definitely YouTube or certainly abillionlives.com. And then, of course, people can follow us on A Billion Lives on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Those have been pretty active communities as well.
Most excellent. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your time. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sharing your time. This is Norm Bauer with Vape Radio, the voice of vape. Do not go away. We're going to be back with our next show in just a few. Since we've recorded this interview with Aaron, some progress has been made. After lots of conjecture on how to get this movie into the quote-unquote mainstream, it is now available for purchase. The links to do that are in the show notes, so if you've not seen it, it's worth the price of owning your own copy. And the fun just continues over the next few weeks as we have more great topics coming up on future shows. On our next show, number 89, we'll be taking a deep dive into some of the repercussions of the outrageous government regulations that are shutting down businesses and costing jobs. One of the most badly affected states, my home state of Pennsylvania, it's so sad and embarrassing that entrepreneurism has to be stifled like this. When you hear about the crazy tax that has been implemented and how it's forced the closure of more than 100 shops, you'll be PO'd just like everyone else. Meanwhile, our mission, our commitment on Vape Radio is to bring you informative and compelling topics and guests. But for now, that wraps up show number 88. And thanks again for listening. Do you have a topic you'd like to hear, or do you have something to share? Someone you'd like us to speak with? Send us a note to norm@vapementors.com. And don't forget, we're offering a free FDA mini course, and you can access it at vapentors.com/FDA mini. That's MINI. Meanwhile, vape on.